How are you, champions of health? Today, I would like to talk about the 10 foods that damage your heart. This is important because heart and vein disease is the leading cause of death worldwide. 18 million people die here every year. This is twice as bad as cancer and is associated with heart attack and stroke. This is a problem if the heart lacks oxygen and may cause myocardial infarction or stroke. This is associated with heart and vein diseases. Only a few do not agree that heart disease is caused by eating. Living and eating are the cause of most of these problems, but we cannot agree on which food is to blame. That is why we will discuss this and fully understand it. Follow everything to understand the mechanisms so that you will not fall into the trap of belief in various claims. If you search on Google, you will see the foods that cause heart disease. The leading result, the Better Health Channel, states that saturated fat causes heart disease. It causes an increase in LDL cholesterol, a bad type of cholesterol that causes heart disease. We want to understand that this is not the case. This is a fact, a myth that has been going on for decades. Evidence remains clear to us. People who eat high-quality saturated fat live longer and do not cause heart disease. This is the way to prevent heart disease. The mantra to avoid animal products such as butter, chicken fat, and pork fat should be followed. You should avoid beef, pork, eggs, or bacon. Some say that all milk products should be low in fat, and that is the problem. So we need to understand the mechanisms behind it. They include pastries and biscuits at the end, like a last thought, and they did not specify that these two things should not be in the same category. Animal products have saturated fats that are good for the body, while pastries are really bad because of the fat of the vegetables that were hardened and made saturated by a process called partially hydrogenated. It becomes a type of fat that is bad and toxic. It causes various problems. But that is not the only issue with pastries and biscuits, because they also contain sugar, preservatives, modern wheat, and other grains and starches. By mixing these in one list, we can often see different categories of food that are combined without understanding why they are related to heart disease. That is why we need to understand the true cause of heart disease, once and for all. Let us go back to the past. Let us start with heart disease and its roots. The blood vessels are damaged. This is the cause of heart disease. When it is damaged, we experience heart disease. Atherosclerotic plaques and calcifications can be a result of a bruise inside the body. If there are many blood clots, strokes can occur in the brain. So what is the cause of a bruise? The answer is two things. Two things cause a bruise. These are morning sickness and oxidative stress. These are the main causes of a bruise. So the question is, while we are talking about a bruise, what is the cause of morning sickness and oxidative stress? What foods cause it? The number one mechanism, the number one adaptation to the body that causes these problems is called insulin resistance. This is what causes both morning sickness and oxidative stress. This is the main problem for most people. But this is not the main problem because you may have heart disease even if you do not have insulin resistance, which is common. If you do not have insulin resistance, it may be due to addiction, stress, or bad fat. When we talk about these, not all fats are bad. There are good and bad. The main cause of insulin resistance is sugar and processed fat. This is the cause of morning sickness and oxidative stress, which causes a bruise to the body. We cannot discuss the foods that are not true to their causes. It is important to understand that insulin resistance is an adaptation, not a disease or condition that should be feared. This is an adaptation. It is a temporary condition that the body experiences based on our lifestyle. If we change our lifestyle, adaptation will also change. Insulin resistance is actually the same as type 2 diabetes. It is almost the opposite in almost all cases. If we can reverse insulin resistance, we can also reverse diabetes. But we need to avoid the foods that cause it. That is why, in the above chart, we have real signs of heart disease. Because this is a succession of signs. The 10th food is rice. This is not bad compared to other foods we will talk about, but it can still be a problem. And this is the reason we need to understand what glucose and carbohydrates are. When we talk about carbohydrates, this is a plant food that we eat, which is divided, and then we suck the blood vessels as glucose. This is called blood glucose. And this is a 6-carbon plant. Glucose is a monosaccharide. Most plants are made up of glucose. When we eat sweets, this sugar on the table is usually a disaccharide. When we talk about glucose, this is a fruit toast on the other side. It has 6-carbon glucose and 5-carbon glucose. This part is the same. Depending on the disaccharide, one will change. They can be different. Usually this is not noticed because the sugar is bad, but the complicated carbohydrates are good. This is not understood by most people, that it is exactly the same thing. When we talk about glucose, we will start with the blood glucose. When we combine glucose, it becomes a long chain called starch. This is what can be seen in rice, potatoes, and others. When the body sucks the carbohydrates, this glycogen is produced. The ingredients are the same. Wood and sticks are also made of glucose. The arrangement is different. We cannot separate it. You understand that almost all carbohydrates are glucose, which becomes blood glucose. Almirol is 100% glucose. It increases blood sugar and insulin. When the blood sugar is high, it cannot enter the cells to work and become energy until the insulin helps. That is why when the blood sugar is high, the body produces insulin. It is a very good mechanism. It works well unless we start using a lot of carbohydrates. If we eat corn, sometimes, and according to the time, there is no problem. The system is balanced. But when carbohydrates become our main food, and we eat it every day, all year round, that is where the problem occurs. The system becomes very confused. How do we get rid of it? We get insulin resistance. The question that I often receive is, why did Asia eat rice for so long? The reason is because, in history, food is not a luxury. They eat rice but not processed food. They are physically active. They work almost all day. They eat 2 or 3 times a day, not 6. They do not drink soft drinks or Coca-Cola. They do not eat processed food because it has a lot of sugar and chemicals. If you only eat rice, and only a few people eat it, and there is no exercise, your body will endure it. But if you start eating rice along with processed food, that is where the problem occurs. If you get insulin, your body is resistant and ready to eat rice because it prevents the situation from reversing. Another thing about carbohydrates, a lot of people know about white sugar and high fructose corn syrup. That is why they say, I will avoid those two. But in reality, it is no different from other types of sugar. Whatever you call it, sugar, agave, dextrose, or any other type is the same. The only difference is glucose and fructose. It has the same effect on blood. It causes insulin resistance and prevents the previous condition. Sometimes, some people will say, I get it. But the right knowledge of proper nutrition is still important. I understand that those are not good, but of course fruits are still good, right? We need to eat more fruits and vegetables, right? To be honest, no. Fruits are not bad, aside from insulin resistance and poor metabolism. That is why most people can eat fruits. But if you try to reverse a condition, sugar in fruits is really the same. Glucose and fructose have different proportions. There is no difference. It is not processed by the body in a different way. Fruits are tastier than candy bars because they have more water, less fiber, and the processing speed is different. But the sugar and insulin needed are the same. That is why if your metabolism is healthy, go ahead, eat fruits. If you have diabetes, reduce it to a minimum. You can still eat a few berries sometimes, but avoid fruits. And don't believe the slogan to eat more fruits and vegetables, more vegetables and a few fruits. Starch is 100% sugar, glucose, and includes foods like rice, potatoes, and beans. They also have a different content, but it is high in carbohydrates. Corn is really high in starch. That is why it is called corn starch. Tapioca and sorghum are also high in starch. Many believe that they don't eat grains because of gluten and wheat. That is why they eat gluten-free foods, but they still eat sugar that is 100% starch. That is why in Verano, bread is mixed with rice flour, tapioca, or sorghum to soften it. But on the other hand, it is still rich in starch, so be careful when eating it. Rice and bread contain the same starch and insulin, but bread, wheat, and gluten are more common. There are many issues with the health of the intestines due to allergies to bread and gluten, so even if there is no reaction, it is better to try to stop eating it. Allergies and intestinal issues can lead to morning sickness that can be a cause of heart disease. One of the causes of heart disease is alcohol. Why is that? Because alcohol is natural in small amounts. It is a natural ingredient. We have an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase. It is used to break down alcohol, so it is not toxic to the body. But if it is too much, the liver will drown, because this is the only thing that can process and break down alcohol. So when it is put in the body and spread, it affects each cell. But this is the only thing that can break down and remove to neutralize. So there are many things that are not toxic that can be harmful if it is too much. So a glass of alcohol once in a while is not a problem. Drinking a bottle of alcohol every day is a big problem. When the liver gets tired, it develops a fatty liver. Before, most of the fatty liver was called alcoholic fatty liver disease. Now, most of the fatty liver is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease due to fructose. So sucrose is half glucose. White sugar in the table is half glucose and half fructose. Fructose is very similar to alcohol. In the liver, only the liver can process it. So a few berries once in a while is not a problem. Too much fructose, sugar, soda, candy, and processed food is a problem. This is what makes the liver tired and develops a fatty liver. When it is full of fat, it becomes resistant to insulin. Because it is the center of metabolism, the fat spreads in the intestine and creates conditions in the body. That is why we become resistant to insulin when we have a fatty liver. If you want to drink once in a while, it is better to drink a little. But if you drink, I recommend drinks like gin, vodka, whiskey, rum, cognac, and others. The most delicious one because it is distilled and evaporated. That is why there is almost no sugar. Alcohol is a fermented liquid rich in sugar, but most of the sugar is eaten by yeast. That is why most of the sugar from the outside disappears, and only a little is left in the alcohol. That is why, again, I do not recommend this. If you will continue drinking, avoid the worst drink. Beer is worse than alcohol. It is rich in carbohydrates from butyl and malt. The worst are mixed drinks containing alcohol and sugar. That is why now, only milk can be processed. It is like you are giving it twice the amount of rice or more than alcohol. I can say that sugar is probably worse than alcohol, because with alcohol, you know when you are overdoing it. But with sugar, you do not know that it is very easy to become addicted to it. When you have tasted one, you want another one, and another one, and another one, no matter what you are eating. 7th, over-processed food. That is why whole foods like meat, peanuts, eggs, fish, vegetables, roots, and fruits are natural whole foods like plants and plants. But if we add it and dry it, crush it and add more things and put it in a box, now it becomes over-processed. This type of food has been around for a long time, but up to 50 years ago, it did not reach 10% of what we eat. At present in the United States, it has reached 70% of what we eat. 73% of calories are from excessively processed food. In the whole world, it is still lower, but the issue is getting bigger. Many countries have reached 50% or more. The problem is that excessively processed food full of sugar and other unprecedented ingredients can be found in chemicals, preservatives, flavors, and other things that can be addictive to processed food. There is an industry of chemicals that makes food taste tasteless. This is why it is based on salt, sugar, and flavor to make it taste good. They also use oil from seeds, usually hydrogenated oil and shortening, because it is so bad that even bacteria do not like it. It helps to make the food firm. Because of this, food loses its substance when processed excessively. They remove the substances that are good for the body that can be affected by wind, heat, and light. So they prefer to add processed oil and remove the substance that prolongs the life of food instantly. This is good for business, but bad for us because it loses its substance. As a result, there is too much food, and the world lacks nutrition. We get a lot of calories, but not the basic ingredients that we need. So we eat a lot because the body does not get what it needs. When we continue to eat, they add chemicals that make it taste good. So, the body gets sick. As a result, there is low health due to metabolism, insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, and other conditions due to the wrong digestion of the body. Our body puts out a lot of things and it becomes a mess. So if we stop eating, it will be cleaned and processed. Sixth is fast food, which is a type of processed food. Many people think that because it is hot and looks like food, it has similarities in some aspects. They put in a little meat and other ingredients, so they think it is real food. There is protein from burger, fish, chicken, and bread has protein and a little vegetables like carrots and onions. But the problem is sweet bread is also included. And the sweet bread, like what we mentioned, is bread. It is made from sugar, and the sauce is full of fats from seeds and sugar. And they fry the potato with fats from seeds, and they use the fats. We will talk more about fats later. That is why fast food also helps with this problem. And they also sell soft drinks or milkshakes with it. Sometimes I eat 100 hamburger patties in 10 days. Most of the time I eat salad. I eat 2,500 calories every day. If you eat 2,500 calories in a fast food restaurant, most of the time, I experiment because I am not afraid to eat. In a fast food restaurant that has the same amount of calories, you can get more than 300 grams of carbohydrate, 70 grams of protein, and 100 grams of fat. The fat is of the wrong type. The carbohydrate is 65%, 9% protein, and 25% fat that meets the recommended macros. That is why the fast food industry follows the trend and says we have carbohydrate, fat, and protein that is recommended, but the carbohydrate is too much. It does not mention that with food, you can also get 150 grams of added sugar every day, close to what people eat. Now, let's talk about seed oil. This is the 5th time someone asked why he always sprays seed oil and oils from plants and vegetables. But when it comes to extra virgin olive oil, he says it is good. Let's make it clear. Yes, everything comes from plants, but there is a big difference. That is why seed oil from seeds is higher than omega-6. We need omega-3 and omega-6, but their ratios should be almost the same. When you eat seed oil, the ratio is 20, where omega-6 is higher, and it produces morning. So, if it is balanced, it is not bad. So, if it is unbalanced, it produces morning. In the production of oil, it is not only higher than omega-6, but the process of obtaining it is also rough. It is not that easy to extract oil from seeds. It requires high pressure, heat, and chemicals. A solvent like acetone is used to get the fat from seeds or other bottles. In the process, the fat is oxidized and reduced. When we talk about vegetable oil or seed oil, 3 oils make up almost 99%. Oil from soy, canola, and corn. Soy oil comes from legume seeds. Canola comes from rapeseed and corn. It is not easy to extract oil from raw materials. It requires high pressure, heat, and chemicals. Now the taste of the oil needs to be whitened. It needs to remove the dirt and smell and go through different chemical processes. In the end, you will get a mild, tasteless, rotten oil that can last for years. So, when I say that vegetable oils are bad, these are the types that I refer to because they went through this process. There is nothing bad about oil because it comes from plants. So, if it is a partial process, it is not an issue. In making extra virgin olive oil is high in fat. It is the same with coconut oil. With simple pressure, you can get the oil. It will not be ruined in any way. Even in canola, you will not get much oil, but it can be made cold-pressed. This is another type that is not my favorite. But it is okay if it is cold-pressed and organic and minimally processed. It has a big difference compared to processed vegetable oils. There are other oils like walnut or avocado oil that can also be cold-pressed, but note that the taste is a bit strong if it is not processed. There are also a lot of flavors from compounds that remain in the oil that I think are good. Many people do not like it because they are used to no-tasting oil. So if you are going to make mayonnaise or any food, usually the taste will be too strong. The problem with eating at 4 is the fried food. The issue of frying is not exact. What type of oil are we using? I call this seed oil. It is a very processed, no taste like vegetable oil. And that is not the only bad thing. We use it again and again. We heat it to a high temperature. In making, it is closed and becomes rancid. It starts with the most important product, moreover, it gets worse. And it causes oxidative stress in the body. And if you're going to fry, you can use pork fat, lard, or coconut oil. These are resistant to heat and oxidation. That's why it doesn't turn into pain right away. This is the reason why lard and pannis are good. They don't easily oxidize when exposed to the wind. You can put them in the sink for a few months, and they'll still be okay. The third food is margarine. It's been used less recently. People don't use it much anymore. And there's a better version, but the problem is still big. And it's still made from the same oils that we talked about. There are a few brands now that are starting to use olive oil and others. But don't believe all that noise, because they don't use extra virgin olive oil. They prefer to use mass-processed olive oil. If not, the taste is too strong. There are some alternatives to margarine or lard that you can try. But be careful and remember that they don't always use the best ingredients. To be nutritious, they need to hydrogenate and harden it. They used to make it partially hydrogenated, and it turned out to be bad. So now they make it fully hydrogenated. But if you look at the labels, you'll see that almost all margarines are partially hydrogenated. When you partially hydrogenate something, you make it trans fat. Trans fat starts as one of the oils that we talked about, but we change the molecules. So now, it's very toxic, and it changes the function of your mitochondria. And in fact, it's toxic. Your mitochondria is what's inside your cell that makes up 95% of your energy. Your energy is part of your brain, of all the things you do that reduces your energy from your mitochondria. In fact, this mitochondria is very sensitive to oxidative stress in free radicals. Trans fats, thanks to their thousands of negative effects, are harmful. Free radicals add to the mitochondria, and in essence, they poison it. However, a lot of longevity has something to do with the health of the mitochondria. That's the reason why it was discovered. Now, trans fats are banned in half, and they need to be labeled if they have trans fat. That's why they need to be removed. But, can you trust this? What does it mean when they say that there's no trans fat? Because we know that when it's hydrogenated, it has trans fats. The question is, how much? That's why you often see it on the label that it's hydrogenated, but in front of the package it says that there's no trans fat. And the reason why they do that is they reduce the serving capacity to a very small amount. It's not as bad as 0.4999 grams or half a gram of trans fats per serving. It's considered to be zero. It's called that there's no trans fat. But it's not like that. It's just lower than half a gram per serving. That could be problematic. That's why their method is clear. The second food is donuts. It's not just the donuts that should be considered while discussing these categories. This is the food that is mentioned and all of its components. We need to understand the principles and mechanisms rather than simply memorizing the list. What's bad about donuts? Actually, it contains almost everything bad that's mentioned in this list, full of sugar and starch from the flour. They do this. There's gluten that causes allergies and sensitivities. It's fried in oil from the seeds of plants. There's a little oil in the dough, so it's fried in more oil. In deep fry, it goes through the same problem. It's like they intentionally combine all of the bad things. What's really missing here is alcohol. Of course, you'll try to add it, but it will go away when it's fried completely, so it's not included. There's chemical, artificial, taste in processed food. The number one problem in food is sugar. And the reason is, maybe the donuts are good at combining all of the bad things. But sugar is the worst food because it's everywhere. It has no calories. It doesn't get nutrition. It hinders the metabolic process of the body. 50% of sugar is fructose that moves like alcohol in the formation of the fatty liver. It's very addictive, so it has many bad effects on you. There's a limit to how much you eat. Just a few sips is enough to move you to others. But with sugar, you can still eat after you drink soda. Usually, someone can drink 2 liters of soda in one day because sugar is very addictive. It doesn't make you feel full even just a little bit. The problem is that there's too much sugar. Some people don't notice that they can drink soda one by one with high fructose corn syrup. Their molecules are the same, but there's a slight difference in the biscuits, donuts, sorbets, and other food that they don't notice. For example, BBQ sauce is sweeter than Coca-Cola, and this is the reason why almost all processed foods are addictive. And that's the problem with sugar, because we can get it anywhere. Remember that everything we talked about is bad because it causes oxidative stress and insulin resistance. Almost all foods that cause heart disease are fine if you avoid the things we talked about as bad. If you liked this video, I'm sure you'll like the other one as well. If you want to know more and understand how the body works, subscribe, click the bell, and turn on the notifications so you won't miss the videos that will help you.